Hi everyone, Jack the Rambling Raconteur here with book 15 of Homer's Odyssey. And again, a transition book. We get some time, a lot of time with Telemachus, a little bit of time with Odysseus and Eumaeus the swineherd. And a couple of things I thought were interesting. One is that Telemachus, when he gets the gifts, because he's going to leave the court of Menelaus, he's going to go home. Athena has advised him to do this, so he's going to leave. And he gets gifts from Menelaus, from Helen, and from their son, Megasthenes. And Menelaus gives him a gift that was developed by Hephaestus, which is cool. It shows like divine favor. But I thought it was really interesting that Helen gives him a robe that he's supposed to give to his wife. And I think that's an interesting way of, there's either a dark irony there of, well, it's ironic that Helen, whose disappearance with Paris sort of kicked off the whole Trojan War and this whole 20-year saga for Odysseus, is hoping that her marriage is somehow a harbinger for the marriage of Telemachus. Or it's perhaps a different type of irony in terms of Helen is absolved of any guilt in the Trojan War, and it's entirely laid at the feet of Paris. And so, you know, she and Menelaus sort of have this, they have been reunited. They have a son who's going to rule. And so that their marriage is a good model for what Telemachus could hope for. So I think there's sort of two interpretations there that one could take. Another thing that I thought was interesting was Eumaeus telling his story to Odysseus of how he was basically kidnapped by a woman and some some Phoenicians as a child. And then ultimately that's how he ended up being sold to Odysseus' father Laertes. And Odysseus tells him, like, well, Zeus hasn't totally, wrecked you because he at least gave you a good place to, have a master. Which that's it's a very specific point of view to take on that one, Odysseus. But it is interesting, is Homer suggesting through the character of Odysseus that sort of all's well that ends well. That it doesn't really matter how something is what happens to a person, as long as they get home or have their final achievement, it sort of erases everything that's gone over. And that could almost be happening with both Helen and Odysseus in this example. One other thing I noted was two different bird haruspices going on. One with an eagle that snatched a goose, and another with a hawk and a dove. And it's interesting that there's not a repeated bird motif here, and perhaps it's because Telemachus is younger, and so that's why he represents more of the hawk type idea, whereas Odysseus is older, and that's why he represents the eagle. But I thought that was interesting that there were two different ones, and perhaps it's two separate traditions that were brought from the oral tradition to the epic. So hope everyone's doing well.